What's up, NBA fans? Welcome to another episode of the NBA Outlet Preview Series presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, on all these preview pods, Kory Waldron. And back again, Xavier Clyburn. What's up, fellas?
What's up? How we doing today, gentlemen?
I'm trying giving everybody the horns. Fear the deer.
Fear the deer. Kory mentioned it. We're talking Bucks today. Finally in the top 10. It's been a long journey, but number 10, Milwaukee. Before we talk about the ranking, let's talk about the Bucks from last season. Giannis was huge last year. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, kind of came onto the scene huge. What were your thoughts on the Bucks last season?
The Bucks last season, they definitely improved on the year before where they did not make the playoffs. They were 42-40. That was good for sixth in the East. You saw a couple of bright spots. You had Malcolm Brogdon, Thon Maker. Giannis Antetokounmpo took another step in his development towards, being possibly a top 5 player in the league. And even though they lost in the first round to the Raptors, you could take a lot away from that season and hope that momentum carries on to this season.
Man, they were fun to watch. That's my first takeaway. Giannis Antetokounmpo, probably my favorite name in the NBA. There's been I
got to give you props on that pronunciation. That was by far your best pronunciation of any international player.
I was about to say, out of all the players in the league with tough last names, it took me a while to finally get it. I was afraid to even say it in the past, and now, Antetokounmpo, I could say that all day. If that's on a test and you get like a verbal test, I'm getting 100 on it every time. They were fantastic last year. That young core between him, Jabari, and Middleton, Brogdon, even Tony Snell, even Thon Maker. This is the Even podcast. There's been a lot of guys on this roster who just really showed up last year. Like you said, Xavier, they were good enough to get the 6th seed. They gave the Bucks gave the Raptors a run for their money. I think actually if Jabari Parker was healthy for that series, I think if he was even healthy to finish the season, it would have been certainly a different look for the Bucks, because it seemed like the minute Middleton came back, I believe Parker went down for the season. So you never got to see this group, fully healthy and on the court together.
Yeah, which kind of just sucks for Bucks fans. Like you said, soon as Chris Middleton came back, Jabari went down, and Jabari was having a huge year. He looked fully healthy. He was a monster. It just, sucks to see him tear his ACL again. What do you think about the Bucks? Oh, go ahead, Xavier.
I say with the Bucks, you could kind of see them planning for the East after LeBron. With all these young players, you would think that they would hit their peak maybe 2-3 years from now, where LeBron, if he's still in Cleveland or if he's out, he's definitely going to be on the downslope of his career. So you definitely see them moving towards the after the post-LeBron East, which is going to be wide open for anyone to go take.
Yeah, that's exactly. You see a couple teams doing that, a team like Boston, maybe Philadelphia. But what are your thoughts on Jabari Parker? Do you think he's going to be able to recover from this knee injury? This is the second time he's torn ACL. So is he going to be able to bounce back, or, are we going to expect a lesser version of Parker?
Interesting enough for the Bucks, like they have to decide on an extension deadline from him on the 17th of October. And so far we haven't heard any news from that. I wouldn't extend him because the knees just don't seem healthy. Every year is something. If it's not an ACL, it could be a meniscus. It could be, a bone bruise, something that he's always missing games. So with him, they have to kind of this is a big year for him if he can come back healthy. If he could be even 75%, 80% of what he was, that helps the team out a lot, because really, outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo, there's nobody else that can create their own shot outside of Jabari Parker. That also, because of Jabari Parker not being there, that puts a lot of pressure on Giannis to distribute, score, rebound, assist, whereas Jabari Parker takes that heavy load off of him and thus prolonging Giannis' career.
I mean, last year in the fast break, watching Antetokounmpo and Parker run the floor, it was really fun to watch, and I would love to see those two running the floor with Middleton and Brogdon running down the side, sitting in the corners for wide open threes. I think if this unit was able to stay healthy on the floor, it could be extremely fun to watch. 2 knee injuries. I mean, I dread comparing him to another player we know who was hampered with knee injuries in Derrick Rose. But, the knees in the back are the two things that you need as an athlete. Once those things start to go, there's really no coming back. Even though health and science and all that kind of stuff is fantastic nowadays, it's really hard to bounce back. Like you said, Nick, before, he was having his best year to date. I hope he can come back. I hope he can return to these 20-6 numbers that he was putting up last year. But it's a wait and see kind of game.
Yeah, the one nice thing for him will be Chris Middleton will be there, so that'll kind of ease the load for him a little bit because that's another offensive threat. Like you said, though, Xavier, Parker was really good at catching the ball, not only improving his three-point shooting last year, but attacking off of that, giving Giannis somebody where he can drop the ball off and they'll make a play and maybe throw down on somebody.
The only good news with Jabari Parker is that his game, even though he is athletic and he can dunk, his game is not really predicated on athleticism. He does have enough skill to, even if he loses some of his athleticism, to still be effective on the floor. The guy's like 6'8", 6'9". At the 4 spot, he could still be effective because he can shoot. He can put the ball on the floor. He has offensive skill that can overcome an athletic deficiency.
Yeah, very true. He definitely has a nice skill set, and he has some good size to him. So it'll be nice if he can come back healthy and kind of fit with this young core. But let's talk about Giannis a little bit more. Jason Kidd last year said that he thought Giannis could be one of the all-time greats, Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant type player. I disregarded it because I didn't know if it was really possible. But after last season, and like you mentioned before, Xavier, he could possibly be a top 5 player this year. What are your expectations for Giannis this season, and do you see him maybe entering the MVP conversation?
There's no reason for Giannis not to be the second best player in the East with all the departures of players this past offseason. He has a chance. This is the year where he has a chance to really not only push himself into a top 5 conversation, but also push the Bucks into, I'm not going to say title contention, but definitely they could. It's not out the realm of possibility for them to make the Eastern Conference Finals. It's definitely not out the realm of possibility. Outside of Cleveland and Boston, the rest of the East is wide open. So I was looking for him to, if he's going to be that player, the Bucks need to finish top 4 in the East. They got to finish top 4 in the East for him to even be considered into the MVP vote. But because, like I said, all the best players, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, all the best small forwards, matter of fact, all went to the West. So there's no reason why Giannis Antetokounmpo should not be the second best small forward. And if LeBron James does maybe take a step back this year, rest a little bit to get to the playoffs, there's no reason why he couldn't be the best player in the East. It's not out the realm of possibility.
All right. Well, he will never be the best player in the East until LeBron's out. I'll just say that. That's a hot take. I do think as of right now, he's for sure the second best small forward in the East. Like you said, Paul George went west. Jimmy Butler's west. The other big name small forwards are Hayward, Melo, and Batum. And I think Antetokounmpo is at least head and shoulders above those guys currently. At 22 years old, I mean, this is a guy who's going to win MVP. There's no doubt in my mind. We're talking about a guy who's a 3-point jump shot away from being probably one of the best all-around players in the game.
To clarify my statement, what I said is, for one season, Giannis Antetokounmpo could be better than LeBron for one season. I say if LeBron takes a step back this year, just takes a step back to rest up, just to get to the playoffs, not push himself too hard because Kyrie left, Isaiah Thomas is hurt, but also he doesn't want to shoulder all that load. So I'm just saying, just for one season, he could be the best player in the East.
It's possible. I think this is a year personally where LeBron's going to go off, especially for how hard he's been training in the offseason. Some are saying that he's training harder than he ever has before. I don't see him taking a step back this year. I feel like he's trying to give one last really big run. It's possible. Obviously, we don't know. Time will tell. I see LeBron taking it to another level this year, personally.
But let's move on a little bit. Highlight of the Bucks last season.
I had a couple of highlights for the Bucks, but I'm gonna go with the easy one. I'm gonna go with Malcolm Brogdon. They got this guy as a steal in the draft. He was Rookie of the Year, albeit because Joel Embiid did not play the whole season. But he showed a lot of two-way ability. He showed the ability to make plays for his teammates, the ability to play tough, hard-nosed defense. Remember, he was a 4-year guy out of Virginia, so whenever you get a 4-year guy, they're going to be able to play. But I didn't think that we was going to see this kind of production, him being a starting point guard in the league. It was very impressive for me because he showed, there's a certain place when you watch them that they just belong on the NBA floor. and you could clearly tell that he belonged on the NBA floor. So that was my lone bright spot of the outside of Giannis, of course. But if you had to pick somebody else, I would go with Malcolm Brogdon because he just came out of nowhere. Really, remember his first couple of starts, he got a couple of 10 assist games, some 20-point games, and we was like, whoa, where did this guy come from? So that was a gift that Jason Kidd got that we did not see coming.
My highlight of play of the year has got to be Antetokounmpo's game winner against the Knicks, with the famous Melo just standing there upset, kind of looking defeated. That was the first time I saw Giannis make a big time jump shot like that. Obviously, we know how good he is around the basket, and he came up over Lance Thomas to drain that bucket. And as for an overall highlight, I'm going again with Antetokounmpo. I mean, he had probably, 2 of the top 5 blocks from the entire season. He's probably one of the best chase down defenders now behind LeBron James, if not better than him at this point, because of that crazy wingspan he has. It was fun watching him all year.
Yeah, honestly, this team has a couple highlights. They obviously had a little bit of a rocky start to the season, but Giannis was obviously great, like you said. Brogdon was great. I'll be a little bit different. I had Giannis written down, but I think Don Maker was a little bit more impressive. I think a lot of people didn't expect him to have any type of impact coming into the NBA. And by the time the playoffs came around, he played some good minutes, and he kind of showed up a little bit and showed that flashes of potential of what he can be. Just another super lanky, versatile piece for the Bucks moving forward.
Yeah, kudos to him because in the playoffs, he looked like their starting center of the future.
Yeah.
He played great, especially against Serge Ibaka. I thought that would be a matchup that would be a clear advantage to Toronto, but he held his own to a guy that's bigger, stronger, more skilled than him, and he held his own. So that was very impressive, and hopefully took that momentum into the offseason and worked twice as hard to get bigger. Because if he gets bigger and gets stronger, he could definitely be a problem in this league.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's just so young, and I've mentioned this on this preview pod. I think with age, he's just going to kind of start to put on more muscle and size. So future is definitely bright for Maker. But let's talk biggest disappointment for the Bucks last season.
We touched on it already, Jabari Parker and his injuries. This would be a year where he could have been in the All-Star discussion. Not that he would have made it, but he definitely would have been in that discussion of forwards to kind of make the All-Star game with the way he was playing. Also, injuries to Chris Middleton as well. He missed the early part of the season. He came back earlier than expected, but even after he came back, he had moments where he was good, but also you could tell he wasn't the same Chris Middleton. But once he has a healthy offseason, he comes back, he'll be good. But really, Jabari Parker, that's the big one, man, because a lot of people have a lot of faith in Jabari Parker, Giannis Antetokounmpo 1-2 punch. That could potentially be one of the best front courts in the league. But he has to get healthy. He has to figure out what's going on with his knees. Maybe go see the German doctor that all the other All-Stars been seeing, just to get his knees healthy, because he can't keep going on like this, because not only will his career be shortened, but then he might go down as not a bust, but someone that didn't live up to the potential that he could have lived up to.
I mean, you make a great point with the injuries. It was certainly disappointing to see him go down. A little voice crack there. I'm going with, for my disappointment, Dellavedova. He had just inked that deal with Milwaukee prior to last year. In 76 games last year, starting 54, playing 26 minutes, and he averaged 7 points per game, and he shot 39% from the field and 36% from three. It wasn't awful. Delly was coming off that high from being in Cleveland, where he was extremely valuable for them off the bench. I just expected more, I suppose, and he was just kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I think Dellavedova, nobody really expected Brogdon to take his minutes by the end of the season. That's what kind of happened. Not to say Dellavedova's, any type of elite point guard, but he definitely didn't bring what they wanted to with that contract. So that was a disappointment. And like you said, health, just not having your big three together at any point, healthy and fully in stride. It just sucks, especially in the playoffs. Like you guys mentioned, if they had Jabari in the playoffs, could have been a different series, or who knows, if they had him healthy for the full season, they might have been a higher seed as well.
Honestly, I think that they would beat the Raptors because they just couldn't score. Like, they could defend the Raptors. They just couldn't score at times. Sometimes during the games, they go through like 5-minute stretches where they only score like 6, 7, 8 points. And if Jabari Parker was on the floor, they definitely would have scored more than that. he definitely would have gotten buckets. He would have got a lot of buckets in that series.
I think John Henson's another guy who probably was a disappointment.
Yeah.
You know, a guy who's making $11 million a year, only playing. Well, he played just under 20 minutes per game. He pretty much dropped in every statistical category besides rebounding, and it really looked like at times that they rather go to Greg Monroe rather than Henson, and rather than Thon Maker as well. He just kind of fell out of that rotation with Jason Kidd near the end of the season.
Yeah, he's kind of just been a disappointing type of player. And like you said, getting that contract, that one definitely hurts me. And Xavier talked about it a little bit off air. Salary-wise, there could be some issues moving forward. But let's talk about this ranking. Bucks in at number 10. How do you feel about that? Our OTG writers came up with this. Do you agree with them, or do you think it's too high, too low?
I personally think when I was looking at their ranking, I was more looking at how they rank against other teams in the East. And where other teams are in the East, I think is fair. I personally would have flip-flopped them with Toronto because I think Toronto's taking a step back while Milwaukee has a chance to improve. And there's guys that has untapped potential where I look at Toronto and I think that Toronto's pretty much maxed out on what they could be. So, but it's fair. Number 10 is fair in correlation to the rest of the teams in the East because I do see them behind the Cavs, Celtics, and Wizards. But the Raptors, I think that they could be a little bit better than the Raptors this year only because there's room for improvement with that roster.
I think it's extremely fair. Just to throw this out there, the NBA, ESPN's NBA Twitter released their BPI rankings or preseason rankings, and they also ranked the Bucks 10th. So OTG seemed to have gotten this one right for sure. I think 10th is pretty fair, especially because of how young the core is. And I think the Jabari injury history is probably the one big question mark that might be what could have put this team, like you said, Xavier, over top the Raptors. But I think it's extremely fair.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair. Like you said, I agree with you, Xavier. I think by the end of the season, the Bucks could potentially be better than the Raptors. But as of right now, I think I have to give the Raptors some respect, even though they're not a good playoff team. They usually do perform. And like you mentioned, Kory, the injury question mark with not only Jabari Parker, but somebody like a Chris Middleton, who's, was banged up for a large portion of last season. Some of the other guys, you got to worry about, how much can you get out of these guys? It's going to be a lot on Giannis if one or two of those guys were to go down.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. And I just think that just comes from them having to space out these minutes more because you have guys you could throw out there. So really, on a team like this that has a lot of depth, only person that should be playing more than 25 minutes a game is Giannis. I think you could stagger everybody else's minutes to kind of preserve that health. Like Jabari and Chris Middleton, they go share court time together, but also try to stagger their minutes where they stay within that maybe 25 to 27 minute range. So I just think that that's up to Jason Kidd to make sure that he's not overtaxing guys with minutes.
Yeah, I think Parker's definitely somebody I would monitor. I think I'd want Middleton on the floor a little bit more, though, for what he can do, especially as a fit next to Jonathan, that 3-and-D ability. So, but let's talk additions this offseason. Draft, we got our draft guy, Xavier, here. So let's talk draft. Bucks picked up DJ Wilson with the 17th pick. What are your thoughts on him? Another long, versatile guy that can kind of fit in the Bucks idea of where they play.
I love this pick for Milwaukee. He's not Giannis Antetokounmpo, but the potential to be somewhat of a versatile guy that could make shots and play, make and rebound and push. One thing that I look forward to him doing this year is pulling the board down and pushing in transition. I really believe that he has ball skills that you really didn't see in college because the floor isn't as spaced in college as in the NBA. But in the new NBA with the spread pick and roll and stretch fours and stretch fives, I think we're going to see a lot more of his skill level. He'll get the ball in space and be able to make a move, take pressure off of Giannis, take pressure off of Chris Middleton, depending on how many minutes Jason Kidd gives him. But Jason Kidd has shown the propensity to play rookies, hence Malcolm Brogdon. So there's nothing in my mind that says that he shouldn't be given, DJ Wilson maybe 10 minutes at first. And depending how well he develops and how quickly he provides for this team, seeing him being the first big or second big off the bench. So I really look forward to seeing how he fits alongside Giannis. I mean, I'm thinking of a Giannis at the 3, DJ Wilson at the 4, and Thon Maker at the 5. That's 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot all on the front line. That's not only length, but height and wingspan in Jay Bill's terms. Wingspan. Just so much.
That's over 21 feet of wingspan.
Like that's a scary front court to go up against, just because not only are they big men, but they're big men that can move. Giannis and DJ Wilson move like guards, and Thon Maker has shown the ability to stay in front of guards and point guards. So I'm really interested to see how he fits alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, I mean, you hit. I mean, pretty much like spot on. I mean, there's another guy. You know, he's 6'11", stretched for the 7'3" wingspan. The Bucks are going for these really, long guys. I mean, I really like. It's really fun looking at this Bucks team because you can clearly see what they're going for. And last year, guys like Teletovic and Spencer Hawes, they weren't what the Bucks needed in the playoffs, especially against the Raptors. Those guys are really slow on their feet. And adding a guy like DJ Wilson, who will most likely, I think, get minutes pretty quick. Jason Kidd doesn't seem to mind playing his rookies, pretty much right when they get into the league. Like I wouldn't be surprised if DJ Wilson starts playing, 20 minutes off the bench right off the season get-go. He can shoot. Rebounding is probably going to be a question mark. So he didn't do it very good at Michigan. But it was certainly a good draft pick, especially with, Jabari's injury history. DJ Wilson could probably see a boatload of minutes if anything happens.
Yeah, like you guys nailed it. The length, the versatility is just what the Bucks are looking for, and they're going to be a scary team when all these long, lanky guys kind of develop.
Also, real quickly, just a side note, they were able to acquire Sterling Brown for cash, and I watched Sterling Brown at SMU. He's 6'6", can legitimately play 1 through 3, is another long, versatile forward. So he could be someone just to keep an eye out on. I'm not sure how many minutes he'll get, but he is signed through to next season. So that means that they do have some type of faith in him. So I look forward to him. He averaged 13 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists at SMU, which shows the ability to be versatile. Another versatile guy that he could play the 2. So think of Malcolm Brogdon, a 6'6" Sterling Brown, 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot. It makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least they at least have like an idea of what they're trying to get in their players. So I think that always helps a team a little bit. But let's talk free agent signings. They didn't really sign any big names. A whole bunch of these guys aren't even locks to make the roster, but they picked up some NBA guys who've kind of bounced around a little bit. Brandon Rush, Kendall Marshall, Gerald Green, James Young. Any of these guys stick out to you? Do you think any of them will have an impact on the Bucks season? Doesn't sound positive.
I was more focused on Tony Snell because he does count as technically a free agent signing.
Re-signing, yep.
Yeah, re-signing. They gave him 4 years, $46 million, which is pretty much market value for a 2-guard, a 3-and-D player in this league. Outside of him, maybe James Young could jumpstart his career. He didn't do much for the Celtics. Other than that, I think these are just more guys to fill out the roster, just to fill up those extra spots, just to see if any one of them can jump up. But none of these really jump out to me as guys that can, contribute right away. Because the Bucks roster is pretty much set as is, and you kind of see whose role is what. But we'll see when training camp comes if anyone stands out.
I'm a big fan of re-signing Tony Snell. Tony Snell was fantastic last year for what it's worth.
I think they actually got him. They got him kind of on a steal, like you said, Kory. He was a guy that, I was surprised that they were able to re-sign him so quickly, and no one was willing to, he wasn't willing to go into free agency and try to get a bigger offer.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who shot 45 from the field and 40% from 3. When Middleton was out, they really relied on Tony Snell to fill that void, and he did it perfectly. Like you said, I was rather shocked too that there wasn't a bigger market for him.
I think was
he restricted?
Yeah, he was restricted.
Yeah, I mean, like we saw, that's been a big story for this offseason. A lot of guys who have been restricted free agents besides Otto Porter Jr., they really haven't gotten much attention.
Yeah, I think with him, a lot of teams didn't want to put that money out because they wasn't sure if that 3-point stroke was consistent or because the defense, I think his defense is going to be consistent throughout his whole career. But that 3-point shot, I think that would be a question mark for most teams. But the fact that they got him back relatively quickly on a deal that is pretty much market value that's good. That's kudos to them because they locked him up for 4 years. That's really good.
And he's a perfect complementary type of player to put next to Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, and he started all 80 games too, or 80 games last year, which that's pretty impressive to only miss 2 games all year. I'm guessing it was probably to rest. And I
Yeah,
just want to bring in, they signed Gerald Green to like the camp deal today. I hope he makes the team, just because it's just another dunker, and I just think that'd be extremely fun to watch another guy throw it down pretty hard. Because Gerald Green did have a lot of very good minutes last year for the Boston Celtics. What was that? The Boston Celtics. He was big for them off the bench. I mean, at times, Brad Stevens leaned on him kind of heavily.
he
So,
saved them in the playoffs.
yeah, I'm sure he'll battle for a spot. I wouldn't be shocked if he made the team.
Yeah, to your point with Gerald Green, here's a 3-point shooter. The Bucks team, they were 6th in the league in 3-point percentage, but they were near the bottom of the league of 3-point takes. So he didn't really have a lot of guys that could flat out shoot. So he would help them in the 3-point shooting department, because we know he's coming to the game, he letting it fly. He gonna shoot, he gonna shoot, and he gonna shoot some more. So he could definitely help them in terms of floor spacing for Giannis.
Yeah, I think having Chris Middleton all year too will help that number. It was pretty surprising they shot such a high percentage, but let's talk departures. They didn't lose anybody huge. They lost Michael Beasley, who thinks he's going to rejuvenate his career in New York, and they also lost Spencer Hawes. Thoughts on these guys? Well, they stretched Spencer Hawes, so they kind of got rid of him.
Yeah, I think they might miss Michael Beasley a little bit. That was consistent offense off the bench. But, with the guys that we have here, Mirza Teletovic, he can give you points. Don Maker, he'll give you points. His departure clears the way for DJ Wilson to get those minutes. So this might have been a good thing for them. But what happened to Rashad Vaughn? Like, Rashad Vaughn is supposed to be like the next, a perimeter scorer for them. Whatever happened to him? Like, I feel like he just gets pushed. He gets put into the rotation and then gets taken out the rotation.
He had some good moments in summer league. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a little bit more of Vaughn this year.
Yeah. They need to, as long as they get some shooting around Giannis, that would help a lot.
And he's a guy that can light it up, right?
Yeah, he's a guy that can get buckets, but he doesn't do much defensively. So,
yeah.
Jason Kidd with that team, they need guys that can defend, because they haven't been the defensive team that they were 2 years ago, and I think they're trying to get back to that identity of defense.
They definitely showed the potential in the playoffs. But any thoughts on the departures, Kory? You think Beasley or Hawes will be missed?
If they want to get back to defense, they definitely lost 2 guys who don't want to play much defense. I don't think they're bad moves. Spencer Hawes, at times I've heard, at least from things I've read, that he's kind of a problem in the locker room at times with his political views. I know that
Really?
that was a problem while he left Charlotte. They had issues with him in the locker room. And then Michael Beasley, he thinks he's going to average 25 points per game with the Knicks, so he's a head case of himself. They're really not going to miss either one of these guys, though.
Yeah. Definitely interesting point about Hawes. I did not know that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get picked up by anybody then. But let's talk starters for the Bucks next year. Who's starting on opening night? Let's assume that Jabari Parker probably won't be fully healthy by that time, which I don't think he will be.
So I definitely think the starting lineup should be Malcolm Brogdon, Tony Snell, Chris Middleton, Thon Maker, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That would be my starting 5. That's the one I think. That's the one I think gives him the best start out of the game. You bring Greg Monroe off the bench. You have Mirza Teletovic still. You still got, when Jabari Parker comes back. I think Jabari Parker coming off the bench with Greg Monroe might actually be a nice little 1-2 punch to come off the bench and take advantage of team second units. So that's why I would go with Thon Maker, put him in the starting lineup. Jason Kidd started him in the playoffs anyway, so I can see him kind of using that momentum to start him opening night.
Man, there's so many ways they could take this rotation. So I have a realistic lineup and then my dream lineup. Should I not put Parker in these? Because I have Parker in both these.
I don't think Parker will be back by the time the season starts. I would assume, just because ACL tears do take a little bit of time.
Right. Okay, so I'll just redo this on the fly then. So I have my point guard. This is my fun lineup. The point guard position, I have Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then at shooting guard, I have Tony Snell, Middleton at the small forward, and then at the power forward, I had Jabari, so I guess scratch that and put in. See, this is all screwed up. It's done without it would be Jabari and then Thon Maker if Jabari was healthy. That would be my fun lineup. Realistically, if Jabari's out to start the season, it's got to be Brogdon, and then I think they're going to start Tony Snell, and then have Middleton at the small forward. Giannis probably plays a small ball forward without Jabari, and then Thon Maker starts.
Yeah, same one for me. I think
Yeah.
you go with Brogdon, Snell, Middleton, Giannis, Thon Maker. I think that just makes the most sense. And then when Jabari comes back, Xavier brought up a good point. It'll be kind of easy for Jason Kidd to kind of ease him into a six-man role because he'll be already coming off the bench most likely when he returns from injury. So if it really works out, he could be like, I don't want to mess with the starting lineup, and you'll still be in our closing lineup, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and him going up against backup fours and threes, that favors Milwaukee. That really does.
And it could help give him his confidence returning from injury. So that's always an important thing, too, because we've seen guys in the past, like a Darren Williams, who we mentioned a lot in the Mavs preview. he got injured. He never got his confidence back, and he was never a good player again. But let's talk breakout starter. Who's breaking out for the Bucks in the starting lineup this year?
So for me, I picked Tony Snell. And for me, my definition for a breakout year for him would be if he's on one of the all-defensive teams. That would be the epitome of a 3-and-D player and the epitome of what the Milwaukee Bucks would need from that position. If he can get to one of the three all-defensive teams, then he would have had a breakout year in my book. You just signed to a contract extension, so it would make sense for him to up his game. And for him to up his game, I think he has to be a defensive stopper. He has the length. He has the foot speed. He has the ability to be an all NBA defensive player. So that's why I went with Tony Snell.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he made all defense. That guy is, like I mentioned before, and like you've just mentioned, he's a hell of a defender. Probably underrated and kind of goes under the radar because he's not such a standout type of player in general. For me, I got to go with the easiest answer. It's Antetokounmpo. This is the guy who we mentioned earlier. I'm just going to keep saying his last name. At this point, I like it so much. I don't know if he wins MVP. I definitely think he'll finish in the top 5 for MVP voting this year. And obviously, if he gains even a mediocre 3-point shot, then I don't even know. This guy could probably win it. That's just how good he is at this point of his career already. And we're talking about a guy who's 22. His game has not even reached peak shape yet. I think this is just another year that he's going to take it to another level.
Yeah,
it's so funny to say Giannis.
Go ahead, Xavier.
It's so funny to say Giannis because I have him down as my cheap pick. That's my cheap pick because that's the easy one.
Yeah, it is. So you're right.
Because we just all expecting him to be in that discussion of top 5 players in the NBA. There's no reason why he should not be. The guy is 6'11", longer than Kevin Durant. And during the All-Star game this past season, we saw him pretty much be the best player for the East during the All-Star. Even though it was like an up and down scrimmage, you could just watch guys and tell who's different. And he looked different playing in the All-Star game. So there's no reason why he should not be top 5 in the league. There's no reason for it.
Yeah, and like Kory said, only being 22, we have quite some time before he even hits peak level. And I think, the situation with Jason Kidd is really good for him, and it's going to allow him to be an extremely good player, not only scoring the ball, but as a playmaker. I expect him to improve. So, I mean, he was my breakout starter, but like Xavier said, it's kind of a cheat. So I'm going to go with Thon Maker because I like what I saw in the playoffs, and I think another year of NBA coaching, another training camp will kind of help him get ready. Another year in the offseason working out, like you mentioned before, putting on some weight. I really like what he can do in a complementary role.
If I had to make a realistic pick for a breakout player, I'd probably go with Brogdon. Just because obviously last year was his rookie year. We know that he won Rookie of the Year, even though if Embiid was healthy, he wouldn't have won Rookie of the Year. No offense, Brogdon, if you're listening.
Question, with Brogdon.
Well, go ahead.
How do you I'm trying to figure out because I wanted to pick him, but I was trying to figure out how can he get better? Because I feel like he is what he is, a defensive two-way player. I can't see any way that he gets better than that. You understand what I'm saying?
He raises his. I mean, if he trusts his jump shot more, if he becomes more aggressive offensively, I think defensively he'll remain consistent. I think offense though, there's no reason why a guy like him can't hit 1 or 2 threes more per game or attack the basket a few more times. I think it's just about him getting more confidence, being a bigger piece within the offense.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see it depends also on the role of having different guys around. I think Jabari coming back and how much Chris Middleton is involved in, like how much of a jump some of these young guys made. It's the Bucks are kind of a hard team to predict in a way because we don't really know how much better some of these guys got. And internal development is a big thing in the NBA that kind of goes under the radar in some situations. But breakout bench player.
Oh man, I was trying to look at this roster and seeing like who can we pick, because all the breakout players that we could pick would be like Brogdon, Thon Maker, Tony Snow. They're all starting. So I'm gonna go with the guy that I have a lot of faith in, and that's DJ Wilson. I feel like he could be first team all rookie this year. He has the opportunity to really stand out because he's going to be on a team that's going to contend for a playoff spot. And if you're a rookie on a playoff team, usually that bodes well for recognition amongst the NBA peers and whatnot. So I'm gonna go with him because I just feel like he's gonna earn Jason Kidd's trust early with his ability to defend, move, shoot the ball, put the ball on the floor, and I think that he's gonna show us a lot more than what he showed us at Michigan.
I'm going with that Outback Jesus, which is, if you guys didn't know, Matthew Dellavedova.
I never heard that one.
Thank God for Basketball Reference. I like looking at them just sometimes just check the nicknames. That's one of his nicknames, though, apparently. I'm going with Dellavedova because, with Brogdon starting, they retained Jason Terry, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think he's going to play more than 10 minutes per game. I don't see how 40-year-old Jason Terry can really play much of a backup point guard role. But I've been wrong before. I think Dellavedova really needs to be important and big off this bench unit because, like we said, they have nice pieces in DJ Wilson. Greg Monroe, as we know, is pretty much instant offense off the bench with very little defense. Telelovich can hit the three. They need someone who can play make off the bench. I know Gary Payton II was decent last year, near the end of the season, but I'm not sure how many minutes he'll get to start the year. Dellavedova, he's got to show up. You got that contract, you got paid. You got to be better than you were last year.
Yeah, I like swinging for the fences sometimes with a breakout bench guy just because, it's a little bit harder to predict. I'm going to go with Rashad Vaughn. Xavier mentioned it before. I liked what I saw from him in Summer League. He can definitely light it up and give the Bucks some much-needed scoring off the bench. So that's the guy I'm going to keep an eye on.
And that's a good pick because they don't have a lot of depth at that two-guard spot. So there's minutes there for him. There's definitely minutes there for him.
Yeah, and like you said, if he picks up his D, he definitely can see minutes.
And a thing I always look at, too, when I see a really good starting five is how much bench depth they have. The Bucks are one of those teams. There's a lot of youth on this bench. And, they have offense in Greg Monroe, and Dellavedova's not, a scrub offensively. Telelovich can hit the three. And if guys like Vaughn and a guy like DJ Wilson come onto the scene and they actually become, decent offensive players, this could be a really good bench unit.
Yeah, and I mean, just imagine Jabari Parker back and healthy and, not 100%, but 75%. It could be a big year for the Bucks. So let's talk wins. Best case scenario for the Bucks next year.
My best case scenario for them, I talked about it earlier, would be for them to be a top 4 team in the East. Giannis takes that step into the upper echelon of NBA stars, and they could realistically get to if they get to a 50-win season, I think that would be like the best case scenario because the tools are there. If you have depth in a long NBA season and you have quality depth, that definitely helps you out. That takes you a long way. Even though they are reducing back-to-backs, I still think that over a course of 82 games, some teams will still rest regardless. So 50 wins and top 4 in the East, home court advantage in the first round, I think that could be a stepping stone. They got to win a first-round series. So they need that top 4. They need that top 4 seed. They need home court advantage.
Best case scenario for me is if MVP Antetokounmpo comes onto the scene. I think best case scenario for them is probably a couple wins over 50. I'm going to say 52 wins is probably best case scenario.
Yeah, I think best case is, like you said, 50 wins, top 4 seed in the East. Giannis is huge. I don't know if I have him yet in the MVP conversation. I kind of agree with what you said before, Kory, with LeBron, but it's definitely a more wide open race than before because guys like Russell Westbrook will have Paul George. Guys like Steph Curry play with Kevin Durant. So definitely interesting stuff from him. And I think he could he's the reason, usually on most of these podcasts, I kind of talk myself out of, seeing hope for a team. But with the Bucks podcast, I feel like I'm higher on the Bucks than I was before I started the pod.
It's one of those teams.
There's a lot to like with this team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you just look at the young talent. You're like, the best case scenario on a lot of these teams that we talk about aren't really that realistic for the Bucks. If you guys make a jump and they get Jabari back healthy, I think it's a lot more realistic than some of the other teams. But worst case scenario, what's the worst thing that can happen to the Bucks this year?
Even though this team has depth, it all depends on Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I have it as the worst case scenario that they miss the playoffs due to injury. Because the only way that they don't make the playoffs is if Giannis gets hurt. Because if Giannis gets hurt, this team falls apart because they have nobody else that can create plays for other players. They got guys that can create their own shot, but there's no one else that can create plays for other players. And I think that I'm not sure what the plus minus is with him on the floor and him off the floor, but I'm pretty sure that the team torpedoes when he's not on the floor. So only way that they miss the playoffs is if he gets hurt. I'm not wishing that on anybody. I'm not wishing that on Giannis.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood, but that's the worst case scenario because they don't have any star depth. If that makes sense. That makes sense to y'all. Like star depth, like outside of Jabari Parker, sure, be coming off an ACL injury. There's nobody else on this team that could carry them to wins outside Giannis. So if knock on wood, he should not get hurt. But knock on wood, that'll be the only way that they miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna bring up injuries. I'm just gonna hope that everyone in this top 10 of these rankings stays healthy, majority at least. So I'm gonna say worst case scenario is just they finish 42-40 again. We just see a team that doesn't take another step forward. They'll still be a playoff team, but there'll be another first round outing. I think that'd be the worst case scenario for the Bucks.
I'll take your role as the Grinch, and I'll go worst case scenario like Xavier. And I think injuries. If Giannis is out for any extended period of time, he's becoming one of these players that his team relies on heavily. So I think that'd really hurt them, and they would just miss out on the playoffs. I think if, Giannis is healthy the whole year and majority of the team is healthy, I think there's no way for them to almost not be as good as last season.
Yeah, there's no way that they miss the playoffs if he's healthy. There's no way.
But realistically, what is going to happen next year?
I have them realistically as the 5th seed. This is with some players making the leap and some staying at the same way. So I'm kind of trying to meet the 42 and the 50 in the middle, which I kind of would go with like 45 to 46 games and be the 5th seed in the East.
What about you, Kory?
I'm rolling with 40. Yeah, I don't like the number I put down. I initially put down 46, but like we talked them up a lot. So I'm gonna say they finished with, one win more. They finished with 47 wins, and they finished with the 5 seed in the East.
I'm gonna jump on the Bucks hype train. I'll have the highest one. I'm gonna go 48 wins. I think 5th seed is most likely scenario, but the Wizards I think just announced that Markieff Morris is gonna miss 6 to 8 weeks. So that could kind of hurt them a little bit. Like you mentioned, Toronto, they're not necessarily going to take a huge jump, and Lowry's always been an injury concern lately. Okay. So I'm kind of excited about the Bucks now. I might even have to change my league pass rating. But let's talk the truth. Let's talk the truth. Xavier, you mentioned before the wingspan on this team and the athletes and the length. So when I think Bucks, I just think spiderweb. Like defensively, like their hands are just all over the place. You throw the ball in the paint, it's going to get touched. So emoji for the Bucks, spiderweb.
My emoji, I was thinking harder. I was like, man, what emoji would be good for this team? So I went with the graduation emoji because I feel like Johnson's going to take that leap and go to the next level. So I went with the graduation emoji with the little guy with the cap and gown as he moves into the upper echelon of NBA stardom. So I went with the graduation emoji.
To cut you off real quick, Kory, is he graduating? I'll ask you guys. I wanted to ask you this question. Is he graduating to the superstar level in the NBA? We're only talking about the elite. There's probably about 8 guys in that class. Is Giannis now up in that level?
I believe so.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
We gotta stop. We gotta stop over ranking people too quick. I think we did the same thing with Kyrie Irving after he hit that big time shot over Curry. I just think we get really hyped on growing success rather than consistent success.
What do you think by the end of the season that he will be in the superstardom?
I mean, if he finished if he finishes in the top 3 for MVP, and we all season long say this guy could have been MVP or he gets some MVP like first place votes, then yeah, I'll say he's arrived. But I got to see some jump shot ability. And until there's a more well-rounded game, he's not to me in that top tier yet.
With just for me personally, when he came out of the draft, I did not think that he was going to be any. I thought he was overhyped coming out the draft, and every year he's made me eat my words. So I believe in Giannis Antetokounmpo. I believe that this season, and you're saying, and I get what you're saying. You say consistent success, but every year he's gotten better. Every year his stats have gone up. So there's nothing that would dissuade me from believing that he should not be in, because he's going to be a top 5 player in the East. He's going to be a top 3 player in the East, in my personal opinion. So I'm going with the graduation because I really feel like he's like, just quick story. I used to work at Madison Square Garden, and I was at the Bucks game where he hit that game winner. I kid you not. When we leave in the Garden, the mass of people waiting for Giannis to come out to sign autographs, it was like, yo, this guy's arrived. He's made it. He's here. That's part of superstardom, is bringing people to watch Milwaukee. How many people would watch Milwaukee if it wasn't for him? Nobody.
I mean, I agree. I agree that he's definitely on the upper climb. I don't disagree that he's going to be a superstar one day. I just don't think he's there yet. It's tough for me to say a guy who's played we're going to be in his 5th year yet. He's not even older than me. He's younger than me. He's going to be 23. I just have a tough time with guys who haven't done much yet being superstars. Because realistically, I only see 5 superstars in the entire NBA, and then there's that second tier where guys are just very close to being superstars but aren't there yet.
I would probably agree with the point that he's probably not one right now. I see that in his future, and I see it as a possibility this year. Kory mentioned the shooting. I think another area as a playmaker, because now he's going to get a lot more attention. Last year he was still a big name, but by the end of the season, everybody knew, Giannis could light you up real quick. So I think this year it's going to be about making his teammates better, and that's what superstars do. Is they're not only great on the court and producing numbers, but they make other guys produce a lot better. But let's get to your emoji, Kory.
My emoji is the smirking face, because I think it's the year of the buck. I'm completely on this hype train. I believe the Bucks are going to surprise a lot of teams. I think they're going to finish in the middle of the East. I have them as a 5 seed, but I would not be surprised if they somehow climb up to a 4 seed, or worst comes to worst with other teams, maybe even a 3 seed. That's absolute best case scenario. I think they're going to give teams a run for their money in the playoffs. I think Giannis will finish top 5 in MVP voting. I'm not sure he'll be a superstar at the end of the season, but I'll tell you this much: he'll definitely be in that second tier by the end of the year. I'm on board. I think this team is going to be really fun to watch.
Well, talking about watching this team, let's talk League Pass. Where do you rank the Bucks in terms of League Pass 1 through 10?
I put him at a nice solid 8. A nice solid 8, because outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo, I really don't like watching the other players, because it kind of like, outside of Jabari Parker, but he is so good that I would watch him over a show I could DVR. So any show I could DVR, which is pretty much all the television, I would watch the Bucks over that. So I give him a nice solid 8.
Damn, you got me tongue tied here, because I'm going with an 8 too. This is my highest rating besides the Pacers on this NBA Outlet preview series. Xavier, I'm right there with you to a degree. Antetokounmpo is incredible to watch in general. I'm actually a bigger fan of the supporting cast as well. I watched them probably like the 4th most of any team last year when Jabari was healthy, and I'm on board. I think they're going to be extremely fun to watch.
And with my skewed scale, I'll take them at a 7 out of 10 as well. I think you guys mentioned with Giannis, he's a ton of fun to watch. FanDuel-wise, they have some nice guys because they have some like role players that can really have big nights, especially if there's injuries. So, I mean, they're definitely going to be fun. Their rebrand was pretty nice, so their jerseys look a lot better, their court's a lot better, and the whole Fear the Deer saying is kind of cool too. So the Bucks definitely get some hype. Also, I love Giannis just because I saw him rocking a Packer jersey like 2 weeks ago.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So it had Antetokounmpo on the back. I might, if he signs long term with the Bucks, that would probably be a cool thing to get. But you'd watch the Bucks over what TV show that you like?
I would go with. I'm not sure if y'all understand Love and Hip Hop. That's my Ratchet TV I watch, every Monday. So I would DVR just to watch the Bucks play because I watch that show. I watch that show religiously. So I would miss out on Love and Hip Hop to watch Giannis Antetokounmpo carry his team into the upper echelon of the East.
That's love.
All right. Top 10 shows. I'm picking one of my all-time favorite shows for the Bucks, Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ever, and it's already through. I've already watched it 2 times through. It's not on television anymore, so the Bucks will get primary TV usage when this is on.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to use all my top 10 shows. So these are just be shows that I like a little bit more because I really love some TV shows. I don't know if I can sacrifice them at this point, but I'm going to go with Arrow. It's not a very good acting show acting wise, but the plot is definitely interesting, and I'm already kind of invested like 4 seasons in.
I think the only thing I won't be able to do it is like if the TV is still live on TV, I don't know if I can give those up. Because there's certain like Game of Thrones that you'll never hear that come out of my mouth on this podcast series. It can't.
Yeah, that is an extremely tough one. I've given up Game of Thrones in the past to watch a Sunday night football game or a basketball game or something. I think that's something I would do, but it would definitely be tough. But HBO Go app is definitely clutch though because then you can just watch afterwards.
Why not just DVR it? Turn your phone off from social media because people are gonna spoil Game of Thrones and then watch it afterwards.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is definitely lit. I don't know if that one will get touched on this series. We should have made a bet on it before episode 30. But that wraps it up for today, guys. Thank you for hopping on, and as always, thank you everybody for listening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at OG Basketball. Also, hit that subscribe button. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Fear the deer.